What is going on? I wanted to really take the opportunity today, first of all, to welcome you. You're seeing this video, and we're going to be talking about some incredible things today. I have Steve on the other line, and Steve is an incredible person. He's been a previous mentor of mine. He's a film producer, but also has some incredible things to share when it comes to interpersonal skills, when it comes to detachment, indifference, as well as just living an incredible lifestyle. So thanks for being on the call, Steve.
No, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So can you tell, for those that don't know you, a little bit about yourself, kind of your history, how you, I guess, developed as a person, as well as maybe professionally and so forth?
Yeah, actually, I'm a film producer, so I work in the movie industry and produced quite a few films. My last film was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. That's Hacksaw Ridge, Mel Gibson's film, Hacksaw Ridge. Right. So that was a film of mine, and I've been doing this, probably about 15, 20 years, and that's kind of my day-to-day. And then I think we met because, through just personal development and personal transformation, and we both have a really strong interest in that. And the philosophy of carefreeness, which is something that I sort of adopted as my philosophy. And it's a philosophy that I've kind of created. I sort of built it out more because I didn't know much about the philosophy or if there actually was a philosophy called carefreeness. But when I discovered sort of the idea of carefreeness, I started to think more deeply about it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The idea of connection, which I think is, it's a major thing about carefreeness. It's really about connection. At the end of the day, people connecting with other people. And because my belief is that everything is connected. I mean, I think scientifically that's been proven through quantum physics. Right. So, and I'm a big believer in science and science backing up all of these different philosophical things. So you find this a lot now in quantum physics. They're discovering a lot of even, like Einstein's theories. They're actually proving these theories now scientifically. So I really feel like the philosophy of carefreeness kind of mirrors that, but it's a philosophy of connection. It's also a philosophy of creation. So it's about creating the life that you want to have, because in reality, that is what we're doing every day. The life that we have has actually been created by us. And so I always say that in carefreeness, life is really not about what happens to you, but rather how you react to the things that happen to you. And that's what creates the life that you're ultimately going to have. So I think that people sometimes are resistant into believing that, because that puts a tremendous amount of responsibility on you. But the good thing is that you're in control of your life. You actually do control things. It's not that there's all these random things happening to you, although life is and can be random. For the most part, it's your reaction to those random things that are happening that are going to create the result, that are going to create that life that you have.
And so, many times it's an inner reaction, right? Not necessarily just a physical action, but many times it's the reaction inside of you, or the lack of reaction.
It's the meaning. It's everything that happens to you. You're giving meaning to those things, right? So it's an internal you're creating meaning from the things that are happening. Now, that meaning is only real to you. It may not actually be quote unquote real. You could, something could happen to you. You could think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And ironically, as time goes by, it might have been the best thing that happened to you. So you really don't have that kind of perspective, at least not right away. And we have a tendency, it's just very natural. Our tendency is to want to create meaning out of everything that's happening. And that's okay. But when you buy too much into that and start to believe that that meaning is actually real, that's when you can get into some trouble, right? That's when things kind of go off the rails. So, it's okay to do all that, but you always want to keep a balance. You always want to have an awareness, right? Because awareness is so important in personal transformation. And you want to have the awareness that, hey, I can create meaning out of this, and it may or may not be true in the moment, but you don't want to be attached to that meaning. You want to allow for that to be whatever it may be or become, right? Because like I said, it could change over time, whatever that meaning is that you're giving it. And also just understand that that meaning that you're giving to it is just what you're believing is real about that situation. It may not actually be what that situation is. So just understanding and gaining awareness of how all that works.
So I'm curious with what you were mentioning in regards to connection, because many times the I guess the gut reaction or the mental reaction that you have when you hear of detachment, of carefreeness and all that, it has nothing to do with connection. And like you said, it has everything to do with connection. How do you reconcile those two, I guess, ideas or concepts that at a surface level have almost the opposite meaning in a lot of people's minds? How does that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think, very simply, it's that when people hear carefreeness, or when I tell people, you should be more carefree, or I think it's a bit of a misnomer, because it doesn't mean, carefreeness doesn't mean that you don't care about anything. That's what sort of people tend to think it means. It's actually that it's really about letting go of the things you don't control. Okay. So definitely control the meaning that you give to things. You definitely control your reaction to things. You definitely control what kind of actions you take every day in your life. Those are the things that are in your control. The things that are happening to you, the things that sometimes happen as a result of the actions you take, you can't always control those things. So it's those things that you need to let go of and be carefree about. And it's the things that you actually have some effect over that you want to be more focused on paying attention to, and gaining awareness of how you're reacting and what kind of action you are taking. And also what that inner dialogue, we talk about, the story that you tell yourself. So everybody has a story, and their story is their perception of who they are, right? So I could say, hey, I'm Steve, I'm a movie producer, this is what I do. This is, every time I go out, this always happens. Or every time I go to Vegas, I'm always unlucky in gambling. I'm never lucky when I get, that's my story. That's a story you tell yourself. And it's based on all of your past experiences and the meaning you've given to those experiences, which may not actually be true. So, so that's your story. But in terms of connection, I think it's really about, getting away from all of the false perceptions, all of those things that really are just made up by you, and understanding what actually is real and knowing how to tell the difference. And, and then when you see actually what is real, you're better able to connect to it. So let's just take, falling in love, right? So we fall in love. Love is always conditional. It's, in a lot of cases, it's, we fall in love with somebody because they're nice to us, because, they did this, they did that, right? It's all conditioned upon certain things. But true love is really very unconditional. If you truly love somebody or something, there are no conditions on it. You love them unconditionally. So there are no attachments to, okay, I'm going to love this thing, but this thing has to act a certain way. This thing has to validate my love. Right? So you're not looking for any validation. You're not looking for anything external. It's all coming from inside of you, right? Because you're the creator of everything that's happening. You don't need validation. You don't need anything outside of you to complete you. So that's really about, and that creates a stronger connection when you connect to yourself and what's real inside yourself. That then the duality of that is that allows you to connect to everything outside of you.
Yep. So then,
because you don't put conditions on anything. Nothing is conditioned, pure connection.
So in other words, you're interacting more from a truth level in terms of no meaning, just being really, truly yourself at that point when you begin to release those meanings and those things, right?
Exactly. Right. So that's how I explained it, is through the example of unconditional love. So, you go out there and you just love unconditionally. There are no parameters on it. There's nothing else that has to happen. So
in regards to some of the people that I talk to, clients and other people that I work with, they mention the whole idea of love, as you mentioned. Like, how do I really don't get too attached to a guy that I'm really into and that kind of stuff? What would be the process to begin to let go of those meanings specifically when it comes to love and that conditional love is what I'm talking about. How do you begin to, what is the process that maybe you went through or that you would suggest to your clients to really take in regards to letting go of those meetings when it comes to that?
I mean, look, you're going to have attachments, it's not that attachments are bad. Okay. But I think for me, it's understanding. And again, it's always about gaining awareness. Okay. Because we tend to, with our attachments, when we become attached to them, we think that that's the be all and end all. So let's say you fall in love with somebody, and the way we tend to feel is that we're never going to meet somebody like that ever again, or that's the only person for us, right? This is the meaning we're giving the action. Okay. And then that tends to create a stronger attachment, which is going to create more pain when you disconnect from that attachment. You break up with somebody, you're going to be in a lot of pain if your feeling is that I'm never going to meet someone else like that ever again. Or any of those things that we run through our minds, which are all connected to ego and how we feel about ourselves in terms of confidence, or just how we feel about ourselves inside. It all relates to that's when you break up with somebody, you start to look at, well, what didn't they like about me, or what's wrong with me, or what did I do wrong? We start to look at it from that perspective. And that's where attachments can lead you down the wrong path, and you sort of have to gain a much healthier awareness of what's going on overall. In other words, that love is very real, but it's a love that you could have with a lot of other people as well. So it's not like the be all and end all necessarily.
But it's especially dangerous when it leads you to the road of identifying yourself with failure, with not being good enough. That's where it gets really rocky for people when they identify with it. Right?
Absolutely. That's where the problems sort of come into play. That's exactly right. When you're feeling that you're not good enough, or you're feeling that you caused, let's say a breakup to happen. These are all things that you're going to put yourself through. You're going to run through your mind, and all of those things are going to create pain. It could also create learning, so it's not necessarily all bad, but, I think you have to keep things in perspective. Life really is about a balance. So you just got to keep, you got to take a step back. You got to avoid putting yourself through all of that, kind of critical kind of thinking, and blaming and all of that. And you got to just get to a much healthier place and understand that the thing that you control is basically, how you feel about it and how you're going to act about it. And, just focus on taking care of you. And if you take care of you, you're going to attract people. You're going to create attraction. And if you have a good sense of yourself and you're feeling, self-worth, then other people are going to recognize and feel that about you. So it very much starts from within and then spreads to the outside of, and into all your interactions.
I have a question in regards to something that you just pointed out that I think it's incredibly important, because I think a lot of people have very different notions about what is taking responsibility and what is taking blame. What is the difference? Because, obviously the difference is a whole, ocean of emotions. It's very, very wide. But what is the difference between a person that takes responsibility and empowers themselves to really change or grow, as you mentioned, from a situation, as opposed to someone that takes blame out of a situation and begins to identify with a negative image? What do you think is the difference between the two for people that have a hard time recognizing that taking responsibility is not blaming yourself or, becoming a victim or creating self-hate in your life?
Yeah, I think it's about semantics, and it's also about control. So, blame is probably the wrong word, responsibility, because blame is really judgment, right? Yeah. So carefreeness is about avoiding judgment, because what is judgment? Judgment is a thing that disconnects, right? So if you start judging people, if you say, okay, this person is good, this person is bad, it's a separator. All right. If you say this person, let's just say this person's Chinese and this person's American and those are separators. You know, those may be true facts, but when you start to focus on them and you start to call things certain things, you start to then separate things out because you're labeled, right? It's judgment, it's labeling. So you have to avoid doing that with yourself. You know, if you make mistakes, you know, those things.
Think we might have lost Steve there. Let's see. All right, a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think what he was talking about is really releasing the need to create labels or put labels not only on situations, on people, on different things like that, and also in regards to what's it called? Well, to your experience, and as well as your life experience, as well as the labels that you put on yourself based on situations that happen to you, where you might label yourself in putting yourself meanings in terms of being a victim, or feeling less worthy, feeling like you're not good enough, and that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of labels that you are constantly putting on situations, whether you're in a romantic relationship and there's a breakup, you tend to put labels on it. And so those are the kind of things that happen. Anyway, so I'm gonna check with Steve real quick. We might end this broadcast a little bit sooner and maybe start a new one in a minute. So stay tuned. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you have questions, put them down below, and we can go ahead and answer those, as well as if any other comments that you might have, let us know, and we'll be with you in a minute. Hey, Steve, you're back? You back?
I'm back. Sorry, battery died.
No worries, man. You were just kind of walked off indifferent.
I'm so indifferent. I just checked right out. Nice, anyway, I forgot where I left off at.
We kind of went through with it in terms of the labels, how we label ourselves from a situation, how we label different things that you were basically mentioning in regards to the tendency to label and to judge.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring that all back to connection, because when you tend to label things, you start to it's the separator, it's really what the Matrix is all about. The Matrix really wants us all to feel alone and like we need things, right? So we buy things, right? Or feel insecure about stuff because, we need to buy deodorant so we smell good, or we need to buy cologne, or we need to, whatever it is, get plastic surgery, or, whatever thing that is. It's all designed to kind of make us feel less than and separate from everybody, because we feel like, oh, well, if we go do that, then I'll be able to be in a relationship. Then I'll have more women or men chasing me or something, and so that's how we're conditioned to think. And that's really, that has nothing to do with connection. That has to do with separation and creating a consumer out of you. So that's what the Matrix endeavors to do.
And I think one of the last topics I wanted to mention is something that caught my attention from one of your posts, which is how to let go of perfection and begin to take action without having to, be perfect or have something be perfect in order to take that action. What's your take on that, and how do you do that?
Yeah, well, again, it comes down to conditioning, and it comes down to this kind of matrix, thinking that we all have, and is very hard to kind of shake loose from, because it's so ingrained. For so many years we're told the same things, we see the same things, everything's set up a certain way to sort of keep us very conditioned to, again, be consumers, to have the desire to want to go out and work and drive the economy, and so all these things are ingrained in us. And the other thing that really gets ingrained in you when you're younger is, you got to do everything right. You got to be perfect. You got to be great. You got to be successful. You got to, it's like, this is the things that our parents, meaning, and they mean well. Okay. Again, these things aren't necessarily bad. It's just that when you buy into these things too much, or you think that's all there is, that you run into into issues, because you box yourself in. but you have to see it for what it is and take that step back. And you have to sort of step away from that conditioning, because what that does is when you're conditioned to think like, okay, like when you see like the example of a movie, okay, when you watch a movie, that movie has already been edited and polished and sound design, right? All the bells and whistles have been put on top of it, and it looks really great and polished and smooth. But truth is, all along the way, that was like an imperfect thing that people just kept like banging away at, trying to fix, trying to, hide, trying to this, trying to that. But the thing is, you don't see all that. You just see the finished, polished product, and you think like that's how it came out. Like, oh, that just, someone decided to make a movie and it just came out that way. But you don't see the struggle. You don't see the pain. You don't see the mistakes. You don't see any of that part of it. You just think that everything comes out perfect. So you start to become conditioned, like everything you do has to be like that. Like if I'm doing this interview, everything I have to say, because we're live, has to be perfect. I can't stumble all over my words. I can't, lose my train of thought. I can't, whatever. Right. So when you are thinking like that, it's very debilitating. It's very, you can get stuck. Okay. You can get stuck you can fall into a place where you're afraid to do anything because you don't think you're going to do it right, because you got to do everything right. So you hesitate, you avoid taking action, you run and go hide, whatever. You do anything but do what you have to do because you don't think that you're going to be able to do it the right way. So that's why I talk about taking imperfect action. Instead of trying to make sure everything's perfect, you got to just launch into it. You got to just jump into it and accept that life is not perfect, because that's not the natural order of things. Carefreeness is really about getting back to the natural order of things. The natural order of things is connection, not division, right? So the natural order of that is is also connection, but it's about it's about accepting that life is not perfect, which is what you've been conditioned to think, and embracing the imperfection of it. And then you're going to connect to it because you're connecting to something that's actually real, not something that's an ideal or just been made up.
So again, the idea of separation, just to kind of go over what you mentioned before, is it has to do a lot with the labeling of things. So separation of different concepts like that is what separates you from connecting, right, and being carefree.
It's about judgment, I think. And judgment leads to labeling. Yeah. So if you're going to be a very judgmental person, you're not going to experience some of the greatest things life has to offer. So, as a movie producer, I get scripts from all over, okay? And I get scripts from agencies, okay? And you would think that the scripts from the agencies are the best scripts, right? Because those are the agents. They have the best but the truth is, you actually find better stuff from all the other places a lot of times. And, it's just not what you would think. So, so what what your ideas in your mind about how things are, if you box in and you only think you're going to get the best scripts from the agencies, then you don't have an open mind to where actually some of the greatest stuff comes from.
Yep.
And so you're going to be missing out, right? Because you're judging. You're saying agency good, other stuff bad. You're making a judgment call. And I try not to make those judgment calls about anything or about anyone or about any situation. I try to remain open as much as I can, without just, putting my meaning into it. Because again, that's kind of limited. That's just based on my perceptions, right? And perception is really dicey. So
I'm curious, I guess the final point I wanted to touch on is basically the idea of, as we mentioned, imperfection and taking action. How would you relate that, or what would be your advice for one of your clients, for example, in regards to being more social, for example, and connecting with people, engaging people? And what would be your recommendation for someone that wants to be more social, but may overthink things because they want to be perfect or have the perfect thing to say, etc.? All right, I think we froze again. More technical difficulties. It's all right. All right, so I guess, you know, one of the things that I wanted to ask Steve right now was, what is your advice on taking action? And even, you know, in terms of socializing, even when you don't have the perfect thing to say, or when you are overthinking things. And, you know, we'll hear a little bit about if he comes back in terms of the video, but basically my recommendation would be to begin letting go of those expectations, of those labeling of people, like, oh, this kind of person is going to be rude to me, et cetera, and just simply take action and let go of those expectations to have a specific result and a specific reaction. So that's one of the things I would mention. Let's see if Steve is back. I think he's tuning out for a minute. So let's wait a moment to see if he's coming back. Yeah, so in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, again, put them down below, you know, in regards to carefreeness, in regards to socializing, and as well as simply how to stop overthinking things and taking action. So if you guys have any questions around that, put the questions below. And also, I'm going to be posting a link to Steve's page. So if you guys want some coaching from him, he's an incredible mentor. He's been a mentor of mine in the past. So if you guys want to check that out, I will be putting it on the video as well. And it looks like Steve is not back. Let's see what's going on the feed with you guys. So again, the idea of imperfection, where we're dealing with some technical difficulties. So one of the things that I'm reading here from Malia is judgment is very divisive, you versus them mentality. Absolutely. I mean, especially, I mean, that's one of the things that the ego, the mind tends to do, and we do it all the freaking time. And again, it's based on past experiences. It's based on just basically conditioning. And as Steve mentioned, a lot of the conditioning comes from the media, it comes from marketing, it comes from buy this product and you look better so you can attract the man or woman of your dreams and so on. Let's see what else we got here. What's up, Carol? What's going on? I see you. All right, looks like Steve is back. You back, Steve? Progress over perfection, yeah. Looks like you're back, right?
Yeah. Hey, I think I'm back.
No worries, no worries.
All right. I'm inside now.
No, it's all good. I just mentioned some of the stuff. We had some comments on there and was mentioning some of the stuff in terms of judgment and how people judge and everything. But again, I just wanted to finalize it with what would be your recommendation for someone that wants to be more social, but is caught up with being perfect before they even start?
Yeah, you know, you got to just get out there. And, you know, it's like for me, it takes so much to get me out of the house. But once I get out of the house and I'm out and about, then I don't want to go home. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm very all or nothing that way. I think a lot of people are that way. So
yeah,
you gotta, you know, look, sometimes it's like working out too, right? So in the morning, right, I go out and I run, I work out every morning. Now, you know, when I was younger, that was a lot harder for me to do because I wasn't in the habit of doing it as much.
Sure.
So as I started to do it more and more, you automatically fall into the habit of doing it. And then you just go do it. After a while, you don't even think about,
right,
oh, I got to go run this morning, or I should go out and be more social. You just are like in the habit of doing it after you do it so much. And then it just becomes like second nature. So I'm a big believer in, again, you know, if I've got a zit on my face or something, right? It's very easy to say, to make
I didn't
that.
want to mention it, man.
What's that?
I'm like, I didn't want to mention it, but you guys have now.
Yeah, right. So I got a lot of them. So, you know, it's very easy then to use that as an excuse and say, oh, I've got a zit, I'm not going to go out tonight. But I always say, no, do the opposite. Say, I'm going to go out with that zit and I am going to be carefree about that zit, right? I'm not going to think about it, I mean, I'm not going to care about it at all because there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm going to go out and I'm just going to have this zit and whatever. And there it is. And it's like, and if that vibe then is like so powerful, it comes across to people because it's like you're unstoppable. Like you're not going to let anything like that affect you. Like mere mortals are affected by that. Not you though. You know, you're chill with that. You're cool. And it always amazes me, you know, when I see people who like, I would say, oh man, I would never go out looking like that or whatever, dressed like that or whatever. I'm making judgments, right? All the time. Right. I'm making judgments, right? I can't even help it. But I admire it. I'm like, man, but I admire it. I love that. You know, that person is really amazing. Like now they're attracting me because I'm so impressed by their vibe of I really don't care. Like I don't need to dress up or do anything to satisfy anyone else. I feel good about myself. I am who I am. Take it or leave it. This is what it is. And that's it. Right? You don't have to conform to anything. You don't have to be what that ideal is that the matrix is drilled in your head. You know, you can just be who you are. And it's so freeing to let all those things go. Just let them go, man. Just stop worrying about them. You know, like when I went down to the Dominican Republic, I like cracked my tooth the day before.
That was last week, right?
This was last week. I cracked my tooth. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go with this tooth is cracked. I couldn't even go to the dentist. It was like hanging out of my mouth. And I thought, you know what? Fuck it. Or sorry. Language isn't an issue on this broadcast.
We're gonna figure it out, man.
Yeah. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna think about it. I'm just gonna let it go. And I'm just, you know, because I'm a worrier. I'll worry and fixate on it. And I just let it go. And I don't know. I think it fell out of my mouth. I don't even know what happened. It wasn't even painful, and it's fine. I don't even know what happened. I think I probably need a dentist, but it's fine. Yeah. It's all fine.
So Steve, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way? Facebook, email, your website? What is the best way to get some coaching from you and anything else that you got going on right now in terms of coaching and helping people out?
Yeah, so I've got, you know, full on social media set up. So I'm on Instagram, I've got a website, I'm on Facebook, YouTube. So if they go to thelifestylebystevell.com, thelifestylebystevell.com, that's how you can find me on all of the media. You can message me there. You can message me through my email, which is masteringcarefreeness@gmail.com. So I'm very easy to reach. I've got a lot of content on YouTube. You know, I post a lot of content on Facebook, and yeah, you can always reach out to me in any of those various ways.
Perfect. And I'll post the your website as well on this video once it's over and it's published. But awesome, man. Seriously, always good to talk to you. You've been a big influence in my life, so I appreciate you getting on the phone with me today.
I'm really happy to do it. I hope it was helpful.
Very much so, man. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, we'll catch up. We'll catch up soon. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, Felipe. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.